Well, thank you so much for joining us. Sharon and I are really excited. Although that word feels fairly generic to me, but we're really excited to talk about making work better. I think, we spend a lot of time there, and I think it's completely possible to love and find love in our work. And I think hopefully you've experienced that in the past, and there's more love in the future for you in your work.
Yeah. And as I think about better work, the work itself can be better. We can be better in it. The systems and structures of it can be better. It can do better in the world. So there's all kinds of ways to look at this. So we'll be exploring each other's perspectives and sort of drawing each other out in this conversation and learning about each other. We don't have these questions planned. We don't have answers planned, and we're gonna riff off each other, and then hopefully that sparks something in you that has you think about or connect with what you want or what you know or what you are asserting or wanting in the world. I already said want twice, so clearly that's in the space. So yeah, let's get going. We haven't even decided who's going first, and maybe we can go back and forth. But
yeah, well, Sharon, I'm just really curious. If you don't mind, I'd love to start with you and just, what does better work mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it's work that's more natural, that allows us to be, invites us and celebrates us as whole human beings in relationship with each other and in relationship with the bigger thing we're trying to accomplish together. It's a really big topic. So I love that we're going to explore this together, because I think expanding on it and seeing it from different perspectives is really part of the process. But for me, it really is about thriving in work versus having work be something that I don't know, that we resent or resist, or that depletes us in some way. We spend 2/3 of our waking hours at work, in our jobs. And then when you think about our work in the world, it's not necessarily the job that is our work in the world. There might be other things we do, volunteering and creating and guiding others, mentoring others. Our work is a really big deal for us as humans. And I think it kind of should be. And it's important that it be good and that we can thrive in it.
Yeah. And what's coming up for me is this, I've had a shift, and I've heard a lot of people shift sort of out of COVID, right? Coming out of that and having a different perspective. And I'm curious for you and the work that you've been doing, what you've seen different for people, for yourself, as you show up in this, better workspace.
Yeah, it's interesting that just as COVID hit, I felt like I really wanted to be in conversation with people about what was changing, because it felt big. Like, oh, okay, this thing that I've been talking about for 15 years about being able to do work from anywhere, when it's knowledge work in particular, and having more freedom and autonomy in our work and more creativity. And I thought, oh, this is nature sort of telling us, you better figure out a different way. This is not going to be sustainable to keep working in the way we're working, not just in cube farms together, but also the impact of the work we're doing on the planet and on the universe. So I started this Evolving the Nature of Work monthly call with people. And so we've been talking about it every month, about what's shifting, what's changing, what's needed, what we're doing, what we want, what we see. And so that's been a great way to keep my fingers on the pulse of what's happening. And I, of course, these are people who are thinking systemically. They're not necessarily the people kind of stuck in the rut. They're the people guiding, teaching, leading, that kind of thing. But from their perspective, what seems to be different is we're probably never going back to this idea that work gets done in a physical place with each other all the time. That's been coming, right? But it really got accelerated. Like all of a sudden, technology caught up in a major way, or like, leapfrogged in a major way. Zoom is a great example of that. But and then when people got a taste of that autonomy and the freedom, and not everyone, I get it, that this really is sort of mostly knowledge workers, which is mostly who I work with, creatives and operations, legal, people who are doing, technology, that kind of thing. So in my world anyway, for the most part, that sense of autonomy was at first frustrating. Like, I don't know how to manage myself, or what to do with the boundaries between myself and my work. And, I'm in my pajamas all day working 24/7 now because I don't have any boundaries, but we figured that out, many of us. And so now it's like, yeah, why would I want to commute every day and go into an office or a workspace with other people? I can do so much more and better often by myself, at least part of the time, and have the ability to negotiate that. So there's more. I think the autonomy is a big thing. There are lots of other things, but that's what's occurring to me right now. What about you? What are you seeing?
I'm seeing and hearing conversation around, treat us like grownups.
Yeah.
There's a part there where, in the past it was, even as someone who's salaried and works a little bit of a fluid schedule, right? Where, I don't start at the exact same time every day, I don't end at the same time every day. But, we went from, you're here during these times to the flexibility during, our work from home period of the pandemic, and then coming back into the office and being like, gosh, like, you trusted me before to get it done.
Yeah.
And, many of us and many companies still delivering wonderful business results. And then, coming back to, but now you have to be back into this. I want to see you in the office, and I want to know that you're collaborating, and I want to have all these indicators, which, I feel like we proved ourselves. And so as individuals, I think it's that sort of back and forth, or that, sort of, we swung back into, and now it feels like maybe you don't trust me to get my job done, or you're going to manage me in a way that makes me feel, that there's I've lost some privileges almost. Yeah.
Interesting. And the concept of trust keeps coming up, and so I'm curious, in your work. Well, I mean, let's put a period on this, I guess, the thing about what's changed since COVID. Well, first of all, I don't think there's any post-COVID world. We kept hoping for that. Yeah. There's so many other things that it's created, but if it's okay for me to make a little bit of a left turn here, I'm curious about how what you're doing in your work, because you work with people every day internally, and then also you're coaching people, what you're doing in your work that has people be able to step into that adult, that self-authority, that inner leader, whatever it is, so that they can negotiate those healthier boundaries with their work. Because it can't always be, we don't always get to be the ones coaching the leader who's making the rules. And sometimes it's a systemic thing that creates this feeling of like not being treated as an adult. How are you addressing that? How are you working with people on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of, as you mentioned, trust, and I've personally been on a path of building trust with myself. That's been a big path for me, and so supporting others in that. And so how do you build trust in yourself so that that when you come home to yourself, that you're delivering, you're making intentional choices that are aligned with your values? And then also, how do you set boundaries about how you want to work? Like, it's taking back a bit of autonomy. And I think, there's 80% of your authority is taken, right? It's not given to you. Somebody doesn't walk up to you and say, here's all the decisions I'd like you to make. We all have worked probably with someone where you're like, I don't even know why he thinks he can do that. And then he does, or she does. Right. And so it's self-authority to
them. They stepped into it. Yeah.
Right. And when a lot of times we see someone step into this, and certainly as leaders, we see someone on our team step into something and we're like, yeah, like great, because I felt like I was doing a lot of heavy lifting on my team. I coach leaders around that. If you feel like you're working super hard, you probably are, and it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
So how do you empower your team? And we also need to be empowered as individuals. And so how do you take that back yourself? And that doesn't have to be like some wild, I'm just going to come in at noon and work till 9. It can be a smaller step, whatever feels right to you in that risk reward. But when we can show up in a way that says, I'm an authority in my life. Yes, I live in a world that has rules and I get paid by someone and all of that. But when I show up in a way that shows my self-authority, things around me, people around me will start showing up to meet that, right? And oftentimes we'll get information, right? Is that too much, not enough? We'll start to get that information.
I love that. I mean, really, there is a lot of trust required to take that step and not worry about overstepping or like take care of the other people in the room. We don't want to step on toes. We want to wait for permission. We want to be asked. And at the same time, when things are changing fast in particular, and there are gaps, like, things are moving fast, the system is breaking itself all the time, right? And so there's always these little gaps. So if you're noticing what's needed and you want it, it's wanted, and maybe it is yours to step in, flow in, fill that gap, take that, little piece of authority maybe, or a big piece, and say, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to move in and help and offer, and take the chance that someone will go, no, and then you can negotiate in that moment. Like, here's what's, here's what's needed. What's a better solution? Let's talk about that. But the waiting and the hesitating, it's like standing in front of a fireplace and waiting for the fire to start. You got to actually do something to create the heat and create the warmth. And that's when we get into, real collaboration with each other, is noticing, hey, there's a thing over there. And if you don't have the authority, or you really genuinely aren't in a position to actually do something about it, but you spot it, you see something, you say something, and you're like, there's an opportunity there. So yeah, I could riff on this, because there's also this thing about complaining and being the voice of what's wrong. And, so I'm going to let you pick up the breadcrumbs here and take it somewhere.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot too of, if we're going into a session at work and we throw up a blank sheet of paper on, the whiteboard or the screen or whatever, and we're expecting people to brainstorm off of that or react. It's really hard, right? It's like creating from nothing. And for a lot of people, that's difficult. And so when we make a choice, when we speak something, even if we're like, I think this, a lot of times I'll say to my team, I'm not sure if I even believe what I'm about to say, so work with me. I'm an external processor, but it gives something, like you said, Sharon, something for people to react to, right? Now I can actually push against that. Oh, no, not that. Or
not that, which is just as valuable as yes and, or, I totally agree with you. Like, it's not about always being aligned or agreeing or going in one direction. Sometimes it is about having something be the thing we bounce off of and say, yeah, not that, this instead. It gets us clearer. It gets us moving.
Yeah. And so as I think about, how we are changing as individuals, because I don't think we do change as individuals, right? Companies don't change, societies don't change, individuals within a society change, or a team. So as we
let's let that drop for a second, or let that sink in for a second. Say what you just said again, because it's really important.
Yeah. So individuals change, right? Companies don't change. Societies don't change. We change as individuals,
and I think we can change the societies, and we can change the systems we're in. We can shape them, but we can't wait for them to change themselves.
But it's one person at a time.
Right. Yes. You and I are totally aligned on that. Not that we need to be, like, we could be disagreeing right now. We do come at it from different points of view, and those are both really valuable because our experiences are different. So I love where you're headed with this. I just needed to make sure it lands out there, because I could feel what is that true?
That is true. There's lots of research around how people change and how ultimately then organizations change, right?
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, you look at the work from home, and it wasn't that, all of a sudden the whole collective of the organization was like, yeah, we're going to work from home. It was one person said, this is what's needed, which, started the conversation. And there are some people will adopt more quickly. Others will take more time, right?
Yeah.
Some of us were ready for it. Some of us were really resisting it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
you were in IT for a while, right? Or for a long time?
yes.
How long do you think it took the technology to get to the point where we could have this moment of being able to have such a huge percentage of people working remotely or hybrid?
Well, what's fascinating about that to me is the technology will take as long as it has.
Oh, that is fascinating. Okay, say more.
So, my days are spent enjoying time in a large organization that's highly distributed, but also very much an in-office work environment. And we talked about working remotely for a long time, and no, we can't do that, for many reasons, technology, mindsets, policy. And when we needed to, our technology was right there, both internally, external partners, right? I mean, we all, if we remember, some of us might have blocked it out of our minds, but, Zoom went through a number of bumps in the beginning, right? Companies went from, I had this, video conferencing technology, I had to switch, there were security, like all of the things. And so, we'll take up the space that we have to make the change.
And that seems like a metaphor for so many other things, that we make up these excuses that we can't do this, we can't make this big shift because, and yet if we really needed to, if we were really committed to it, if there was really a sense of urgency, we would do it. We'd figure out a way, because we're so amazingly resourceful.
As we relate this back to better work, and so better work as leaders, right? How we want to come in. And I mean, I know as a manager of people, many times I have, thought, I don't want my team to have to do this, or I want to find a new way. And, maybe I took the step or maybe I didn't. But as I look at certain events over the past year or so, I know that I've fast tracked myself in many ways, right? And it was like, take action, step out and figure something out, try it, get some data around whatever that was, and then adjust from there. And, I guess a big learning for me and a path I'm still on is trusting that I can navigate the consequences of my actions.
Yeah. I know you're not alone. I feel the same. We build integrity with ourselves by saying, okay, I'm going to try this thing. Might be out of my comfort zone. I might feel scratchy doing it. It might be as Brene Brown talks about, our armor has us convinced that if we take off the armor, we are going to die. Like there's something in our bodies that is trying to protect us. So what you and I are doing today is out of our comfort zone. We've been building up to it, but still, I wonder for the people who are watching this now or will watch it later, what is it that is yours to do, or that you want to help to shape, or you want to ask for, or insert, or assert? What's the BS story you're telling yourself about why you can't, and why you're not ready, and why the circumstances aren't right yet? What are you waiting for? We literally, for most of us, you and I are I'm maybe in a slightly different generation, but we're midlife. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Fair to say. And I really firmly believe that at some point I got the message loud and clear that and Brene Brown says this too, the universe is not fucking around. You are halfway to dead, and we all die. And so I really want to live well, and I want this time to count for something, and I want it to be enjoyable. And I want to work with other people to have that be the case too. And work, shouldn't be something we just accept as it is and say, well, that's just how work is. No, it can change. We've seen it change, and you can help to shape it. So the question is, what is what's important to you that you're willing to step into something a little bit more in your own authority. You're willing to try something like you were talking about, Kristeen, about, trying it and trusting that you can dance with whatever gets created and that you can stay responsible with what you create and move something forward, move something into, evolve something.
Yeah. And I also think that there is a place for leaders to follow too, right? So as you say that, Sharon, I'm really getting the sense of like, each of one of us have to have the new idea or the, envelope pushing sort of thing. And I'm not saying that.
Yeah, thank you for pointing to that, because I'm sure you're not the only one feeling that. It's definitely not that. It's that and the flowing in and being, useful where you're needed and truing other leaders up and being an encouraging, fan of what's working and appreciating what's working. All of that's part of that system of shaping things to be better and better.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And it can take a lot of courage to follow someone, right? To hear an idea from someone and say, I'm all in with you. Yeah. I don't know
what I have no ego and I don't need to own this idea and it doesn't need to be mine. I'm not going to compete with you. Totally. So much courage and grace. There's something about like gracefully collaborating and amplifying and all that too. That's all part of better. It's interesting because I think most of the clients I work with are people who come to me because they are frustrated. They see the system and they see what's needed and they're not being asked to fix it. And they don't necessarily have authority to fix it. And maybe they've been told in the past, just be seen and not heard, like be a little easier because you've always got ideas and you've always got something to say. And so, my clients tend to be the ones who are like, I got stuff to contribute here and they're not letting me. And I'm like, maybe there's a way to bring them along and enroll them in your, in what you're seeing. And part of that way is by being a supportive, a team player and being, maybe that's not even it. I think we could riff on the whole value of being a team player or not, but, being part of the whole and knowing that it's not always yours to point the way and direct or be the critic. We are all of these things. We get to be all of these things. And I think practicing that range and being able to be, as much supporter as out front and provocateur, I guess, is all of that's really important.
And modeling, just sometimes you mentioned permission earlier, and I think that's sometimes you do need permission, right? That is the right thing. It's I need permission to do this. And many times, especially in how you work as an individual, I think is just go out and model it, right? If I don't want to bring it down to something, tactical, tangible, but if I don't want to be tapped at 7 p.m., I put a full day in and, people are contacting me after hours, then I have to model that boundary, right? I have to live that boundary of I don't respond after a certain period of time. And, that can feel risky and it can feel, for one person it's risky, for someone else it's perfectly, comfortable, but sometimes we just have to start doing it, right? And then people around us, when I teach in a classroom, there's the idea that we might, sit down, I'm going to tell you about a model. We're going to go through a very specific exercise. And then you're going to, we'll talk about the learning. And other times I'm just doing something and not teaching it or narrating that. And then we debrief. What was that like to have experienced that? What did it feel like? And there's a lot of learning in that too, right? If each of us take a moment and think about someone that we've thought, gosh, that's a behavior that I wish I had, or a characteristic or quality that I wish I had, that you see in someone you work with, right? I have a coworker that I swear this person finds the simplest solution to what seems like the most complicated problem, like unsolvable. And
Brilliant.
they come with just this very basic thing. And I always think about that. She doesn't talk about it. She's not out there like, oh, and then here's what I'm doing. And I'm looking, she just does it. And so
Yeah.
I learned so much from her modeling that. And yeah, anyway, so.
And you also said, so I think you also said, or in our conversations, you've also said that your way of expressing or processing is maybe more verbal. And that's brilliant too, because that gives people something it gives them transparency. It allows people to riff off of something. So I'm a really big believer. I use something called emergenetics in my work. It's an assessment. The word is made up. It comes from emerging genetics. It doesn't presume that the genetics have programmed us. It's a both and, it's the experience and the genes, but it's a very inclusive, cognitive diversity generating tool assessment for understanding our different preferences. And what I love about it is it also includes behavioral preferences like expressiveness, assertiveness, and flexibility, as well as our thinking preferences, conceptual, analytical, structural, and social. And I have so much appreciation for the spectrum of, because I've seen on teams how you bring these people together who think completely differently, have different ways of approaching a problem, different ways of expressing and communicating, and somehow the blend of all those things, even when it's a little itchy, or scratchy or kind of like uncomfortable, you come out with such brilliant conclusions and faster solutions and more creative solutions, because nature works that way too. That there's more faster evolution and more biodiversity, or in the areas where there's more biodiversity, where like the Sahara meets up against the jungle, there's all these thousands of little things that are, emerge because of the pressures of that. And so I want my clients to always really embrace what's unique about them, and also be inspired by other people and appreciate other people's differences, but leverage each other. Like, ooh, can I borrow your conceptual thinking for a minute? Because I'm kind of losing energy around this brainstorming. Or, wow, can we put some feet on this thing and get structural for a minute? Because you've lost me here. Asking for what we need, inserting what we want, and really embracing what's unique and different about us. And I'm someone who has ADHD. I've always been different. I didn't know that for most of my corporate career. I just knew that I was divergent. I was a divergent thinker, and I would riff on things all day, and other people would be like, oh my gosh, can we just, but people didn't say anything to me. And that's not their fault. I think it's how we think about being polite in professional organizations. I'd like to rewild that a little bit and have people be more reflecting impact without judgment, and say, hey, Sharon, oh my gosh, you've got so much energy for this thing. I'm finding I'm kind of, shutting down, but I really want to contribute. Can we lift up and, redesign this for a second, just so I can be in it too with you?
Yeah, I've been super fascinated recently about love and work. This amazing, to me, it just feels like such an amazing concept and tool set around how we look at everything from, children all the way to, throughout your life, in all parts of your life, but love and work. So it's Marcus Buckingham's latest book. And one of the things that he really anchors to is that we are all unique, like literally, no matter how many, insights or disc profiles or whatever, we want to categorize each other. Like that feels human nature for us to want to categorize, but we're all unique. And so he says, we are a category. You are a category of one.
Love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, that's such a mic drop.
Yeah. And it's just such a cool concept. So I've been taking my team through it, clients through it, like just thinking about what it is that lights you up and where do you find love in your life. And you mentioned it, I think, a little bit earlier, Sharon. Work is anywhere where you contribute. So, anything that we do, to volunteer, it's like, if I love something, I'm going to contribute it, right? Many of us have circles outside of the office, right? Whether it's a soccer team or you're a parent or you have a dog, like whatever it is, that's work, right? The energy that you put towards that and your contribution there. And just thinking about how you do that in your way.
Yeah.
And then the beauty of bringing that together on a team and really, really tapping into, Sharon, your uniqueness, how you approach a problem, what you like about the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And we can capitalize on that,
Yeah.
grow in those areas, and just, we're meant to be on teams. We're meant to be on teams, and we
and complement each other, not dominate each other or compete, like some little healthy competition isn't a bad thing, but this idea that that we all have to fit some mold of what a successful professional looks like, or that we even have to define success the same way, or that we have to follow the thread, and follow Robert's rules of orders. And like, there's a place for that stuff when it's designed and it actually serves. But can we just agree that like the old rules kind of don't work in a lot of ways anymore? So we get to kind of make it up, and we get to bring our whole unique, weird selves to it.
Yeah. And find a better way to work, right?
Yeah.
The corporate world often wants to homogenize us, right? Everyone should
be easier to manage something that's homogenous, for sure.
So we have to hit a 5 out of 5 in every competency, and then we can be promoted. If you don't hit that, then right. We compare, Sharon, how are you doing versus Kristeen to see who, and if you're performing and all of this, and you really can't. You can't.
And it leaves so many people. Okay, I'm just going to name it. Like, for so many people, the corporate world, and I know, both of us come from that world, so that is kind of what we're talking about. This conversation about better work could be applied to any industry. We're talking about what we know and what we've lived, and so I invite people to think about how this applies to them. But think about all the wasted resource. And I don't love the term human resource. We are not resources. We are resourceful. We are resourcing each other and resourcing the work. We are the freaking power, right? We're not.
I heard someone say earlier today, human sources.
Yes. Okay. Better. And connected to other sources, bigger sources. I own whatever you believe, but there is energy, like those photos we saw this week from space. Oh my gosh. Right. So there's more than we know. And so I help me land this, because I think that it's gotten really big all of a sudden. And I want to make sure people have a chance to ask questions too. We have, I don't know, 9 minutes left or something like that. But I just don't want to leave people behind, the amazing contributions. And whether it comes from, no matter how you define love, for me, love might feel different than other people. It's not about like being heart-led or heart-centered or, nice all the time, or like passionate even. It's more like the opposite of fear. Trusting, engaging, aliveness, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about love. And I think it's meant to thrive. And when wherever you see it not thriving, something's wanted there, something's needed there. Yeah. Whatever is yours to do, you might be the one who appreciates it, holds it gently. You might be the one who pokes at it a little. You might be the one who offers an alternative, or observes it to see how it changes naturally. But pay attention, because stuff is changing, and you're part of it, whether you know it or not. You're having an impact all the time.
Yeah. If there are any questions or comments, we love to bounce off of, opinions and thoughts as well too. So you can come off of mute, or you can type into chat.
Yeah, feel free to resonate with me or riff off of things. And meanwhile, Kristeen, do you have anything coming up, or a way that you want people to connect with you or engage with you?
Yes. So one of the things that I am committed to is helping people move forward, and whatever that means for you and for your life. But every Friday, I have a free call where we gather up and work on getting you moving forward fast. So it's just an opportunity to throw an idea that you might have that's been sitting in the wings, waiting to be birthed, or a tactical challenge with, maybe a situation with a coworker or a family member where you just could use a partner to think through it. So Forwarding Fridays, you can find it on my website. I have a LinkedIn presence as well too. Like I said, it's free. It's a Zoom call where we'll get together and get you moving, because in that action is where the learning is, right? It's like sometimes we spend so much time in our heads on things, and it's like you can only know so much by trying to think through it, right? There's a place for that, but getting you into action is often where the real experiential learning is.
So cool. Do you want to put that link in the chat as well?
Sure. Sharon, what do you have for me?
Yeah, I have. I decided a few days ago that I wanted to be, I think now is a really pivotal time. Like, so much is changing and people are dealing with a lot, and it's summer and they're wanting to enjoy themselves and live their lives and know what's theirs to do. So I've decided for 6 weeks, starting July 27th, so week after next, on Wednesdays, I'm going to do a lunchtime Pacific time 1 hour meetup, and I'll have kind of a topic and a plan each time. So a little bit training, a little bit, conversation, bring your questions, your gaps, that kind of thing. I'm calling them the Be Now, Better Nature of Work Wild Wednesdays. And we're just going to get into the being present with what's here to work with, what's here to, emote about, what are we going to do to move forward. I'm also about moving forward, because deepening the learning and forwarding the action always. And also creating connection and play around it, because when it's enjoyable, we're more likely to not avoid it. I think too many of us are right now wanting to just sort of avoid the stuff. And I get it. I totally get it. I want to do that too. So I give myself 2 hours a day where I get to do whatever I want. And then the rest of the time I try to be on purpose. Not necessarily working hard, but focused on what matters to me. And I want to invite other people into that. There are lots of ways that we can make that easier, and being together is one of those. Yeah. So there's my link. And so those will go for 6 weeks starting July 27th. And then after that, I have a 6-month group program for those who are questing, who are really up to something and want to create something, change something. And I'll lead that group through.
Nice. And that 6-month program is a structure and sort of something to help hold you through that change that you're bringing.
And I'm going to reveal more about that in these weekly things. We're going to play with some of the concepts and explore what people really want to be up to or not. And so, it'll be also a warm up for, learning more about what that 6-month program might be. But right now I'm focused on the weekly sessions as I build that program, and then we'll start enrolling for that.
Nice. Yeah, I'm reflecting on this conversation and grateful to be with you, Sharon. It's like so fun for me to be in this space of, it doesn't have to be the way it always was, that we can rethink it. If you've got a spark within you to do something different, and what that might be for you, that you go to a 10 a.m. spin class every day, whatever that is, like, I actually believe you can have it, right? Many times I worked with a client not too long ago who had this idea that if they wanted to get ahead, they had to do it like a family member of theirs. Like, that was the path, and that was the only way forward. And it was like this, deep-seated belief that that was the only way to be quote unquote successful. And we worked, and some of these things are an ongoing process, but to unwind some of that and redefine what you want to believe is possible for you. But I do think we can have it all. I think we can have it all.
I certainly hope you're right. We could have a whole other conversation about how, and I think that's when if you want to know how, reach out to one of us or reach out to someone else who's done it. Because I think, you and I in our own ways have created our own better nature of work. And it's taken, redesigning and stretching and offering and trying and stepping into things and also backing off of things and noticing what's not ours to do. And so there are lots of ways to approach that. And I think, let's keep in touch on that, because I think we've got lots of great things to offer in different ways. And so, my wish is that we that this has some ripple effects, that this invites people to, at least normalizes it, that stuff is changing and it's not necessarily easy, and also give some hope that there's something each of us can do, and it starts with us.
Yeah. And that I can feel grateful for what I have and want more at the same time.
Oh yeah, I love that. Both and.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I don't see any questions. I think I'm going to make up that means this has just landed, or either that or people are swirling with ideas and possibilities. Oh, we do have a question. Or we have someone saying that we both touched on it a bit. So is there actually a question there you want me to wait for here? It's typing in progress. So we'll give it another minute and see if a question comes through. But it does sound like knowing a couple of people in the audience here, I think a lot of what we've talked about is probably resonating in different ways, and maybe activating some assertions and wisdom in them as well. And so I hope you'll all take this into your worlds and do something that is meaningful to you. No questions. Okay.
Great. Well,
all right.
Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you that jumped on with us. There's a building energy that comes with being in community like this. And so we feel you out there. We hope you feel us as well in your corner, cheering you on in wherever you are in building better work for yourself and those in your communities. So
yes,
much love to all of you. And Sharon, thank you so much.
Thank you. I so enjoy you. And yes, we'll be talking more, I'm sure.
Great.
All right, take care. Bye, everyone.